at the hotel, and I'm just going to be quiet and let you listen.
Many of you might remember the Rasheed Hotel. It was the place from which CNN's Bernard Shaw and Peter Arnett broadcast the start of the first Gulf War with the famous line, "The skies are lighting up over Baghdad," back in 1991. It was famous for its secret passages and listening devices and an infamous disco where Uday Hussein's bodyguards would snatch girls to be dragged away, oftentimes to be abused and sometimes much worse. For those of us who served in Iraq during our second engagement in the country, however, it was home for a time, a place to blow off some steam after working often 16-hour days in the searing heat. In the few hours that we had to decompress from the meetings about security and governance amid mortar attacks, tense Black Hawk flights over unstable territory, and much more, the American and coalition personnel revived the pool and the lounges there. The Rasheed was many things in those early days, but perhaps foremost among them was being a giant target looming over the landscape of the city. We knew that, we knew the risks, but we went about our work. The building had been attacked before, but 20 years ago this week, what happened would stay with many of us for a lifetime. The night before that fateful morning of October the 26th, 2003, a group of my colleagues and I went down to a gathering hosted by the ABC News Baghdad Bureau. Such social events were not uncommon at the time, despite the obvious risks. They were important for those of us who dealt with the media on a day-to-day basis to help build relationships. With us, the Chief of Staff in our office, Lieutenant Colonel Charles H. Chad Buehring, a Citadel graduate and a towering presence in our operation. He was a lead from the front kind of guy, and so he offered to drive and run security for us, knowing that us civilians had been dropped into the war zone with no training, no weapons, and no protection. He took care of us and his own soldiers with a professionalism and a passion and a confidence that made each of us feel very safe, even in the most dangerous of situations. As we came home to the Rasheed late that night, Chad, as he preferred to be called, saw that I was exhausted. I had been working 7 days a week for months. As he stuffed the weapons that he was carrying into a black backpack and slung it over his shoulder, he suggested I take the morning off and sleep in. As I watched him walk slowly away into the lobby wearing one of his signature Hawaiian t-shirts, I decided that he was right. I would sleep in tomorrow. I'd feel better. But it was not to be. It was 6:30 a.m. when I heard the first explosion, when I felt the building shake. Jolted awake, I opened my eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. I knew this sound. I had heard it before. It wasn't an IED out on the street. It was a rocket. Rockets had a very distinctive sound when they impact a target and explode, or at least I thought so. I heard another one, and these were all hitting the building. There was a massive explosion above me, then one on my floor. The door to my room was blown off the hinges, and smoke and dust started filling the air. As I quickly dressed and yelled for people to start getting out, I could see debris in the hallway. A room across the hall was reduced to kindling. Helping people to the stairs, I could see the blood smeared across the walls and the white marble steps, creating a trail down to the lobby. The terrorists must have known that Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Wolowitz was in the hotel that night. As the wounded were triaged in the lobby and then moved across the street, I asked to stay behind to help the coalition chief of staff. He agreed. It was then that medics brought down one last ashen man, laid him on the lobby floor, and tried desperately to save him. There was nothing for Secretary Wolowitz, Ambassador Kennedy, General Sanchez, and I to do but stand there, watch, and pray. It's the most helpless feeling that I have ever felt. Lieutenant Colonel Chad Buehring's room had taken a direct hit. Over these 20 years, I've thought about Colonel Buehring's wife and his children often. I know the emptiness of that loss. I was about the age of Chad's 2 children when my father died. Growing up like that means birthdays and Boy Scouts, graduation ceremonies, and Christmas mornings tinged with a grief that mercifully fades with the passage of time but never truly disappears. Colonel Buehring would have been 60 today. I've thought a lot about my life over the last 2 decades. how much it's changed and how blessed I have been. Those are 20 years that Chad and his family lost. But I hope that they know how much he loved them. I hope that they recognize the nobility of his service and dedication to a set of ideals that, if lost in this country, imperil the whole world. Lieutenant Colonel Chad Buehring understood that well. His death was not then, and it is not now, an empty death. It has meaning and purpose that transcends time and the politics of the moment, the trends and the fads, and all of those things that today diminish our nation's once unsurpassed commitment to service. There is no greater calling than serving this nation in its military or as a police officer. The dangers and the sacrifices are real, but the reward is having a hand in ensuring that this last best hope of earth sustains. 20 years on, his memory will not depart from me, nor should his example from the soul of the nation. Much more to come on America Right Now. We'll be right back.